Hello, everyone. Hope you all are doing well. Today, we are going to enter into the last unit of our course. That is we are going to talk about Jacob, and from there, we're going to talk about Joseph. Okay, I hope you all have been studying well and you have been watching the videos that have been posted previously. So, let us begin this course. Let us continue the course, and let me share the screen. Okay, so today we are going to enter into the third unit, that is the beginnings of Israelites, lesson 10, that we'll be talking about life at home with Isaac. So we have already seen about Abraham, and we have spent quite a lot of time speaking about Abraham and his life. Okay, so now we are going to talk about Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. Okay, so let's enter into the life of Isaac right now. Okay, so introduction. Let us see what we are going to find in this chapter. So we now the focus actually will shift from Abraham to his son Jacob as his grandson, briefly introducing Isaac, the son of promise. Okay, so we see that Isaac is basically sandwiched between Abraham and Jacob. So majority of the portion we saw till now was about Abraham, and after this also majority of the portion that we're going to look into will be about Jacob and then about Joseph. So very small portion of it we can say, which is intertwined with the life of Abraham as well as with Isaac, as well as with Jacob. We will see the life of Isaac. Okay, so let's move ahead. Isaac's life is mentioned basically in Genesis 25 to 27, but it is overshadowed by his wife, his sons, and previously by Abraham. Abraham is least outstanding among the three patriarchs. Okay, so not much is spoken about him, not much is said about him. He is silent and the most considered to be the most unimportant of all the patriarchs. Nonetheless, he is the son of the covenant, so he is very much important in the plan of God. He never traveled away from home. He was a very peaceful and unassuming kind of a person, which makes him quite uninteresting and quite unimportant from the worldly standards. So not much is spoken about him. He reflected the faith and some of the weaknesses of his father as well. Okay, so in his lifetime and life journey, we will see that he did reflect quite a lot of faith as Abraham, but we'll also see that some of the weaknesses also found its way in Isaac's life. Okay, he was not perfect, but he was the man of God and the guardian of the covenant. So in this lesson, basically, we'll be talking about Isaac and Rebecca and the twin sons, and we will talk about Isaac among the Philistines. Okay, then we'll talk about favoritism in the family, which is something we will be spending time on and learning from it. Okay, so let's begin this chapter. Let's look into the first part of it, the twins of Isaac and Rebecca. So this is found in Genesis chapter 25, verses 19 to 34. Okay, so here we will look into what is happening in the story. So parents and their life is powerful influence on the children. So we have to understand that many of the times what we teach our children, what we teach our children by example is more important than what we speak to our children or what we try to teach them in words. So parents have a very powerful and impactful influence on their children, and the parents need to understand that the way they talk, the way they live with each other, the way they organize the house, everything has a very important impact, a powerful impact and influence upon their children. So it's very important the way you want your children to be brought up. You need to keep the house in that way. You need to deal with each other in that way. Okay. So Isaac was a long-awaited son of the promise and only son to the rich and aged parents. So Abraham was very rich. We know that he was very prosperous and very rich and very blessed by God. And Isaac was the only son to them, and that also born in a very old age. So he was, lavishly blessed, we can say, and he got everything probably what he desired of as a young guy. Okay, so his parents taught him about God, and he was submissive to God's will for his life. So in everything, he was quite submissive, very silent, and very submissive to God, and basically to his parents in everything that they chose for him. He never had a say. Whatever they wanted for him, they did for him, and he never said anything about it. So he was quite submissive, not quite, he was very submissive and obedient to his parents. He was very quiet person, a very passive person. He never used to, he was not a person who would initiate anything or go around happy go lucky kind of person. He was very quiet and very passive. He never traveled away from his home at Beersheba, and he settled as a farmer to cultivate the land. So he never moved around, he never explored anything around the nearby places, but he lived there. He was happy and he was cozy in his own small home. Okay, so we can see that Rebecca shared his faith, and we see that later on, as we can see when Rebecca came into his life, we saw, and we also saw that Rebecca was a person who actually shared with him his faith and everything that he had. Okay, so she was a good companion for him. Okay, so gradually we see that children are born to them. Okay, so let's look into the birth of Jacob and Esau, just mentioned in chapter 25, verses 19 to 26. So we see that the twins of Isaac and Rebekah, only after years of childlessness of Rebecca and her infertility. So we can see, like just like Sarah, we see that Rebecca also was childless for long years. She was infertile, and she was barren and she could not bear child for a long many years. So because of this, she was undergoing a lot of pain, and Isaac used to pray continuously for her. So we can understand that Isaac and Rebecca both used to pray for to have children and to get out of this curse of barrenness and infertility. Okay, so which can basically be traced from their ancestors. And we can also see that when God has a promise, when God wants to give a child as a promised child, there are troubles and there is a weight that is involved in it. Okay, so after 20 years, they received the answer for their prayers, as his faith was tested, like Abraham's faith was tested. But God promised that a great nation, great nations, not even one nation, great nations were to come from him. Okay, so God honors prayer that is according to his will and perseveres in spite of delays. So we can understand that when we pray according to the will of God, it may take time, it may delay, it may take time, but it will come. It will happen, and it will, though it may delay, but it will happen. Okay, so we should not lose hope when we are asking in the will of God. So we can say, see what kind of prayer was Isaac praying. So Isaac was praying specifically for Rebecca's healing, and in faith he based on God's promise. Okay, because he knew that God wanted their generation to expand, and then he was persevering in spite of the delay in the answering of the prayer. So Isaac and Rebecca had received a revelation from God, and they knew that God is going to fulfill that. Rebecca had a problem. We see that not only Isaac was a person who was praying, but we also see that Rebecca was also a person who used to pray. So she was struggling with some issues during the time of her pregnancy. So when she was pregnant, actually, she was feeling very uncomfortable in her stomach, and she felt that there is something wrong inside of her. And probably she went and she spoke with other ladies who were pregnant, and she spoke with them, and she came to know that like this, all these things don't happen during the time of pregnancy. She was very confused, and she was very, she did not know what to do, because there was a lot of pain, there was a lot of uneasiness inside of her that is taking place. So she did not know what to do. She takes this problem to God, and God knows what is happening inside of her, and God answers her prayer in a very prophetic manner. Okay, so there is a lot of significance of this prophecy, or the word that God told her. God told her that she was carrying twins in her, who would be jostling with each other, and who would be the founder of two different and hostile nations. Okay, so we can probably they have never come across people who were having twins in their womb. Okay, so Rebecca was probably the first woman over there who is going to have twins over there, and so she's for the first time among all the women facing all these kind of troubles that a mother would go through when twins are there in the stomach. Okay, so God says that they would not be simple children, but they will be founders of two different and hostile nations. Okay, so one would be stronger than the other, and the younger one will be stronger than the older, and the younger one, the older one will serve the younger. Okay, so the younger will be more authoritative, more stronger, and he will be more powerful, and the older one will serve or submit to the younger one. So symbolically, they seem to be struggling for that position right from the birth. Okay, so we can see Jacob, the younger one, clinging on hardly and very properly to the heel of his elder brother, that is Esau. Okay, so we see that when Esau came out of the womb of his mother, we see holding his heel, Jacob also came out. So they were actually fighting for the position, fighting for their birthright right from the time they were in the womb of their mother. So seeing that, his name came to happen, or came to be Jacob, which means heel grabber. Okay, so that's how his name came to be. Okay, so let us look at the contrast between the brothers. So these both the brothers, Esau and Jacob, they were very, very different from each other. Okay, Esau at his birth was very hairy, okay, very, very hairy. So his parents named him Hairy. That means Esau. So Esau means hairy. Okay, so their parents named him. His skin was quite reddish in color, and it was very hairy. So his parents named him like Hairy, which means Esau. Esau. Okay, so he was named Esau, but Jacob was smooth skinned. Okay, so why was Jacob mentioned named Jacob? We all have come to know, because he was grasping the heel of his brother when he was coming out of the womb of his mother. So that is why his name was kept Jacob. Okay, so Esau's hairy covering suggests he was a rough, rugged, earthbound, interested person. So he was so much interested in the fields. He was so interested in, a rough life, in a rugged life. He was very strong in build, and his skin was quite rough. Okay, so we can understand that by seeing this, we can understand the kind of interest and the kind of life that he's going to live. Okay, both of them were very different, and in Jacob, we see it's not only about grasping the heel, but it is also about his willingness to take advantage of other people. Okay, because he wants something, so he's ready to take advantage of the other person for his own personal desires and needs. Okay, so that's what we see about Jacob. So let's see the nature of both of them. So let's begin with looking at the nature of Esau. Okay, so Esau was a man. He was a man of open country. He likes to live in the fields and forests, and okay, so all these things he liked, and a very raw kind of life, as we can see. He was not interested in farming or anything to do with home. Okay, anything related with home things, he's not interested in that. He likes wild living. He was a skillful hunter. He loved adventure and a free life, a freedom. He liked that. He was very frank and impulsive. He was generous. He lacked perseverance. Okay, he was very impulsive. He wanted everything quick, quick, quick. He did not want to wait. Okay, or he did not want to work much. So he lacked foresightedness, and he was quite passionate for what he was doing. Okay, so he was quite extrovert, quick in expressing his emotions. He lacked self-discipline. He was very materialistic and lacked God and his spiritual values. Okay, secondly, now we'll look into the nature or character of Jacob. Jacob was a quiet, steady, dependable, and home loving person. He was hardworking, very persistent. He planned in advance. He was foresighted. He planned in advance. He was good administrator. He was shrewd, calculative in everything that he did. He was ready to suffer in the present in the sight of the future gain. He was crafty. He took advantage of others to get what he wanted. He desired spiritual things and had faith in God. He appreciated the covenant and its promises. So this was the kind of person that Jacob was. So we just saw that they were completely two different people with different character and different nature, born from the same mother. So it is possible that two of the children can be completely different, vastly different, even though they are born in the same house. Okay, so it's interesting that the peace loving, passive Isaac was attracted to his adventurous, undisciplined son. Okay, because we knew that Isaac was very passive, and he did not want much to stay at home. So he was attracted towards a very different opposites attract, we know. So he was attracted towards a different kind of a personality altogether. So he was attracted towards the adventurous, undisciplined son, energetic, okay, adventurous. Uh, he was string nature, just completely different. Okay, so then we see that Rebecca, on the other hand, she was she favored a quiet, orderly, diligent Jacob. So both of them were attracted towards the opposites. Okay, and we see that Isaac favored Esau and Rebecca favored Jacob. Isaac's appetite was satisfied by the game prepared by Esau after his hunting, but Rebecca loved Jacob, for he inherited her shrewdness, her initiative, and her resourcefulness. So he was quite like Rebecca in the inner qualities, and Isaac, he was a man of his stomach, and he liked what Esau used to make for him. So this is a small chart where we can see the contrast between the two brothers. Esau hairy, Jacob smooth skinned. Esau outdoor person, Jacob home loving person. Esau impulsive, Jacob calculative. Esau undisciplined, Jacob dependable. Esau extrovert, Jacob introvert. Esau outspoken, Jacob quiet. Esau frank, Jacob deceitful. Esau godless, and Jacob faith in God. Okay, so this favoritism by the parents actually divided the family. Parents should be careful actually while training the children in a very proper and balanced way. They should not try to create gaps between them by favoring one person over the other. Okay. So next point that we see over here is selling the birthright, which is mentioned in chapter 26, and we have all heard this story about Jacob and Esau. The character of Jacob and Esau is strikingly revealed. Okay, through this one incident, we can see basically a very important characteristic of both of the brothers coming out. Okay, and being portrayed before us. So we see what is happening in the story is basically Esau. He went out for hunting and he comes back and he's very tired. Okay, and he's very tired and actually exhausted, and his stomach is grumpy, and he wanted to eat something. And at the same time, he sees Jacob, who is a very home loving person, and he is cooking something on the fire. Okay, he's cooking some lentils, some red lentils on the fire, and that boiling smell, it just, the aroma of that boiling smell, it just attracts him, and then he just wants to have it instantly. Okay, so Esau goes to his brother and he says that that I'm so tired, I'm deadly tired, I just want to have this red something that you're making. Okay, so he said something like that, and Jacob shrewdly, he thought that this is a good opportunity for me to take the birthright from Esau. So his eye was on the birthright of Esau. So he thought, okay, this is a very good opportunity. I can use this opportunity to take the birthright or steal the birthright from my brother Esau. So Jacob shrewdly sought this opportunity to gain the birthright. Esau was governed by his appetite. So we know that Esau was a very materialistic person, and his hunger was more important for him than the covenant, than the birthright, or he was never a foresighted person. So we can see that he you know the appetite, the hunger of his stomach basically ruled over him. And in a moment he said, what will be left in the birthright? What will I do keeping the birthright if I'm not alive? So just give me that and I will let me have. So take my birthright and give me those red lentils. Okay, so according to Hebrew chapter 12 verse 16, the word describing Esau means godless, irreligious, heathenish, profane. So he lacked reverence for the things of God. God, in his foreknowledge, actually rejected Esau as the heir of the covenant even before he was born. He was born. So we know that what God destines is not basically on the basis of what God wants, but it is on the basic basis of what God, in his foreknowledge, knows about us. Okay, so God had rejected Esau in the foreknowledge. So he already knew how Esau is going to be. He already knew how Esau was going to behave. So that is why God had already rejected him. Okay, that was the reason why God had rejected him. So we can see that on the other hand, we see that Jacob desired the birthright and the covenant promises by hook or by crook. So we also see that Jacob was thirsty or longing for this birthright, and he just wanted to have it in any way. But we also see that the act that Jacob did to get the birthright was not good. This act of Jacob shows his lack of love for his brother and a great flaw in his character. It is only by God's grace that Jacob could be chosen to inherit the patriarchal privileges, because if we see the character of Jacob over here, he was a shrewd person, a cunning person who took advantage of the weakness of his brother to gain the birthright. Okay. So let's move on to the second point. The second main thing that we're going to talk about is Isaac among the Philistines. It is mentioned in chapter 26 of Genesis. So we can see here some similarities between Abraham and Isaac. So we see here that there are similar tests that Abraham and Isaac, both of them go through, but the way they respond is completely different. So Abraham, we can see Abraham, they were not having children and they had faith, but they used Hagar. Okay, but Isaac, in the same time, we see that they had faith and they used prayer to get a son. Okay. Next thing, in the time of famine, Abraham goes to Egypt and to Philistine. Jacob does not go to Egypt, but he does go to Philistine. Okay, then we see in the time of danger when their wives, the beauty of their wives was, was risking their lives. So Abraham used deceit. Isaac also uses deceit. Then the last thing that we see the problems over the wells. Abraham used separation and the treaty, but Isaac kept moving from one to another well, and reopening another treaty. Okay, so let's move in and let's see what is happening over here. Faith in famine. Isaac also had a weakness and faults as his father, but he recognized his needs and obeyed the Lord. He obeyed the Lord. He let the Lord guide him, and his life and his life, okay, and became a true witness of God's power and character. So we can see here at the time of famine, he was basically depending upon God and not anything else, though he knew that Egypt was a good place, and Egypt was a place where usually people used to go because of the river Nile, and it would be bringing a lot of fruits and a lot of vegetation and a lot of crops in that land. People used to go there because at the time of famine, but it was a land of granary. Basically, it was called the ancient granary. Okay, but we can see here that Isaac chooses not to go to that place. uh, Abraham did go to that place, but Isaac chooses not to go. He stops at Gerar. Okay, so probably God met him and promised to be with him and provide him, and he stays in the land. He does not move to Egypt, but he stays in the land, and he continued to live in obedience with God. God confirmed to Isaac his covenant promises also. So basically, God intervened and he stopped him from going to Egypt. So Isaac stopped where he is in Gerar, and he stayed there for some time. Isaac's faith and obedience bring him reward actually. So he listens to God and he stops there, he stays there, and it is rewarded. So whatever, in even in the time of famine, when everybody was losing all their crops and nobody was able to harvest and nobody was able to gain any crop, whatever whatever Isaac was planting, whatever Isaac was sowing, it was getting abundant reaps. He was getting abundant reap and abundant harvest. Okay, in the famine condition. So this was something that was amazing, and how God was rewarding his obedience because he did not go to Egypt. Okay, but God continued to bless him, and by doing this he became a very wealthy person. Okay, so the God's hand was upon him and his favor was upon him, and it made Isaac a very wealthy person. So what he lost earlier, basically in the famine, by now obeying God, he was quickly restoring everything and multiplying everything because of the divine favor. Okay, so next we are going to see the failure in fear. So Isaac is also a simple man, a simple person, and he has also inherited some kind of weaknesses from his father. So we are likely to, it is understood we are likely to do things wrong when faith gives into fear. Okay, so when fear comes in, we give our faith away, and we start doing some things that are wrong. So like Abraham in Egypt, Isaac also felt threatened for his life in Philistine because of his beautiful wife. Okay, the same incident is going to repeat. How Abraham lied about his wife and gave it to the Pharaoh. In the same way, Isaac is also fearful about his wife, and he gives her in the hand of the king of the Philistine. Okay, so parents often do pass fears to their children. Their own fear they pass on to their children. So though both had God's promises, but fear in the face of danger magnified the danger and weakened the faith and made the person think logically. the normal thing that happens to every individual. So when we are fearful, when we are afraid of something, so in the face of the fear, we tend to lose our faith, and our fear becomes magnified, the danger becomes magnified and bigger, and it weakens our faith, and it makes a person, start thinking logically, or very very logically, instead of having faith or trusting God. So both used deception to protect themselves without considering the problems they were pushing others into, especially their wives. Okay, so we see that both of them, both his father Abraham and Isaac, both of them, they used the same kind of deception, and they did not think of what kind of trouble they were putting all the people into, and especially how much trouble they are putting their wives into. So when Abimelech discovered the deception, he rebuked Isaac sharply, just in the same way how Abraham was also rebuked very sharply. So graciously, we can say, he allowed him to remain in the land, and he even issued a decree of royal protection upon the patriarch and his wife. Okay, so we see that God intervened, and the deception was disclosed, and Isaac was rebuked, but God was gracious with him. So Abimelech did not do anything, did not harm them, but he allowed them to remain in the land, and he even issued the people and a royal decree actually to keep to protect Isaac and his family. The next thing that we are going to see in connection with this is peace in persecution. So, what was the reaction of Isaac now when he was troubled? Okay, he was not like Abraham. He acts differently and he reacts completely differently. Okay, so this unusual prosperity that God brought Isaac, that is when he was in Gerar, we see that when he was planting something, it was giving double harvest and abundant harvest, which was not happening to anybody else, and he was prospering in a very very quickly, very rapidly. So we can see that at that time, because of this rapid prosperity, unusual prosperity, the Philistines became envious of him. They became very envious of him, and they stopped the wells Isaac was depending upon. So we know that how important wells are in these regions where rainfalls are very scanty. Okay, so everybody is dependent upon the rainfalls for watering their flocks, for watering their cattle, for watering their sheep and goat and everyone. Okay, so they were dependent on their wells. So what were the Philistines doing? Philistines, out of enmity or envious or jealousy of Isaac, they were closing up all the wells, and they were moving them away, or shooing them away from all the wells. So the wells dug by Abraham's servant had given him and the family the right to use it for grazing. But we see that Abimelech's people were, just shooing them away from those places and not allowing them to use those wells. So Abimelech soon asked Isaac to leave that place, because he was becoming very very strong for them to be handled. Okay, so he, like his father, he was in a similar problem. He chose to move on. Okay, he chose to move on. He believed that separation was the best choice to maintain good peace and good relationships, and he thought that good relationships are more important than authority over the well. So for Isaac, relationships were very important, very very important. So he thought, okay, if they are not allowing us to use this well, let's move to another place, we'll find some well there. So if when the Philistines were coming to that place also and stopping them from using the well over there, they would move to another place. And he kept moving and skipping and hopping to other places, but he did not fight back, and he did not argue with them, and he did not lose his peace. So he wanted to have a good relationship with them, though the rights of the well were in conflict with them. So later on, he kept moving up the valley. He kept moving up the valley, and he found many wells dug by Abraham, but they were closed by the Philistines. Isaac kept opening these wells, and he also kept digging new wells for him and his people. The Philistine herdmen then claimed them also. So Isaac yielded and kept moving repeatedly. He named the two wells that were creating a lot of problems. He named them. One well was called contention, and the other well was called envy. So when he named these two wells as contention and envy, because it was creating contention and it was creating envy, he moved away from them and he moved to another place where he found more wells and more water. Okay, so we see that there are blessings on the peacekeeper, just mentioned in Genesis chapter 26. So it ended the persecution, it brought material blessings, it brought new revelation from God, it brought friendship and peace, and it brought an effective testimony. Okay, so let's see the how God rewards Isaac for not fighting back with the Philistines but keeping the peace. So the Philistines stopped harassing him. Then we see that he found peace in a broader fertile valley. So God took him into a broader fertile valley. So and then we see that God met him and God confirmed the covenant and assured him of his presence and protection. Then we see that the Philistines recognized that the Lord was with him. And then we also see that Abimelech made friendship treaty with him. Okay, so these were the rewards for a man who was not a fighting person but a peace loving person. So Isaac put God first in his life. He responded to the Lord's appearance with gratitude and consecration by building the altar and calling on the name of the Lord. So we can see that in that place, Isaac built a altar, okay, and he consecrated himself and he started calling on the name of the Lord. So Isaac was completely dependent on God, basically in everything that he was doing. He built an altar in Beersheba even before he pitched his tent over there. So even before he could, make a place to, make a shelter for himself and his family, first thing that he did was to build an altar in Beersheba, and that was something that prioritized God in his life. So God's blessing was on Isaac because of his meekness. And which makes him an excellent example of what Jesus taught many centuries later. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the kingdom. For they will inherit the earth. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the sons of God. Okay, it is mentioned in Matthew chapter 5, verses 5 to 9. So, how beautiful it was to convert the enemies into friends by patient non-resistance. Okay, so it was so beautiful that Isaac was a person who would convert his enemies into his friends. Okay, so then he did not want to defeat them in battle or take their lives as enemies, but he wanted to turn them into friends. So he was placing a good example, and he was very patient with them. He did not resist them, and they became good friends and they had good relations with him. So above all, he had God's approval, and God was glorified through his life. Okay, so next we are going to see, this is the last part that we are going to see in this chapter, and this is favoritism in the family. And this is the most, we would say, crucial point of this chapter. Okay, so this we will see into two parts, the plot and the counter plot. Okay, so let's see the first part, Isaac's plot. Okay, Isaac's plot. So there are two plots that are taking place simultaneously. One is a plot made by Isaac and the other is a plot made by Rebecca. Okay, so these both parents are going to plan and scheme something, and they are going to use their children for it. So in Genesis 27, we see that God's providence, we see how God's providence overrules evil. Okay, how God's providence overrules evil, how God's ways or how God's तरीका जो होता है परमेश्वर का, वो बुरे के ऊपर हावी हो जाता है, नाश कर देता है, बुरे को हरा देता है. Okay, so he uses the sinful devices. We can see that many times God uses sinful devices, to frustrate the plans of evil. So he uses the sinful devices of one party, okay, of one person or one party to frustrate the evil plans of the other. So परमेश्वर दो बुरे के बीच में से एक बुरे को इस्तेमाल करता है दूसरे के ऊपर हावी होने को, दूसरे को पराजित करने को, and so makes possible the fulfillment of the covenant. और इस तरीके से वो अपनी जो वाचा होती है उसको पूरा करता है. Okay, so in contrast with in chapter 26 and 27 throws a shadow on Isaac's character. So till now we have been seeing a very positive kind of a person in Isaac, positive characteristics of Isaac, but here we are going to see some, black spots or dark shadows in the character of Isaac. So his home is badly divided because of parental favoritism. Okay, because they show favor to one child and the other child. Isaac loves Esau more and Rebecca loves Jacob more. Because of them, because of that, a great divide is created in the family. So, though this marriage was planned by God or planned by the heavens, still the partners play a very vital role on the earth to make it sustain it, and to make it happen. Okay, but this was something different that is taking place over here. Isaac allows his preference for his older son to blind him. So he was so fond of his elder son that he clearly forgot what God revealed at the time of their birth, that the elder one is going to serve the younger one, and the younger one is going to receive the birthright blessings. Okay, so Isaac had completely, I would not say forgotten, but he was ignorant of it. He ignored that because he loved his elder son a lot. Though Esau was unfit to receive the birthright, but still, Isaac plots in such a way, he plans in such a way that he wants to bless Esau before dying with the birthright and the covenantal blessings, which actually were not right in the sight of God. Okay, so we see that a new trait in Rebecca's character is also seen here. Okay, so we see that probably Rebecca overheard what was happening between Esau and his father. So she also acts in craftiness. Okay, she also acts in craftiness and takes a cruel advantage of her aged husband's weaknesses and blindness at that time. So what does Rebecca do? Okay, so we see Rebecca also plans and schemes so that to fulfill actually what God had promised at the time of the birth, and she wanted Jacob to inherit the birthright and the covenantal promises. Okay, so we see that not a single person in the family appears to be noble and unselfish. Everybody wants to do what they want to do, and everybody in the family is it looks like they are very selfish, and they just want to do for their own benefit. Especially we can see here Rebecca and Isaac doing things which are not supposed to do. It's not godly, and it's going to have a very bad effect upon the children. So by faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau in regard to their future. Okay, so why did Isaac do this? Okay, so we can see that now we can see that probably I mean, it's a question. Did Isaac forget the prophecy that was given to them at the time of the birth of Esau and Esau and Jacob? Did he not consider Esau's marriage with the heathen Hittite woman? Okay, because Esau had already married some Hittite woman and it was against the covenant. So did Isaac not pay attention to all these things? Why was he ignoring? Why was Isaac ignoring all the wrongs that Esau was doing? And why was he also ignoring that Esau had already sold his birthright to Jacob? So all these things were done by Esau, but still, why was Isaac blindly supporting Esau and wanted to bless Esau? He allowed preferences for Esau and his craving for tasty meal, that is his stomach appetite, take precedence over what he knew to be patriarchal duty. So for him, his stomach, his appetite, and his preference for his elder son was so much strong that he was ready to compromise with his patriarchal duty. Okay, so what was happening? Something very wrong was happening over here. He was about to give the headship of the chosen people to an irreverent family member, and to endanger the spiritual inheritance and the hope of salvation for the human race. So the covenant was to be taken very seriously. This covenant had to bring forth the Redeemer. This covenant had to bring forth the person who is going to rescue the whole mankind. It cannot be given to somebody who is carnal, who is irreverent for the towards God, and who does not honor God, and who is so materialistic. Okay, but still Isaac forgot all his duties and all his patriarchal duties and covenantal duties, and he was about to give the blessings to Esau, who was very materialistic and very irreverential towards God. He was unspiritual person, and blessing him meant the lineage would be blessed, and the Redeemer would not come from that family. Okay, from the family that was supposed to come. It would not be a righteous thing to do. Okay, as a patriarch, he had no assurance from God. Okay, he had no assurance that this was the will of God, so he acted hastily. See, when we know that something is not right, when we know that God is not being with us, and still we want this thing to happen, we try to do things secretly, we try to do things in haste, so that nobody is able to stop us, so that before God does anything, this should be fulfilled. Okay, so we try to race with God, we try to race with destiny, and we try to do things hidden from God. But we should know that God, we cannot do anything hiding from God, and we cannot do anything, hastily. And we cannot do anything in regard when God is there watching you. You cannot, you just cannot run away from God in all these things. So we have to understand that this was a time when Isaac knew that what he was doing is not right, and what he was going to do is not right, and it was he was not getting assured from God. So he acted very hastily. He wanted to do it secretly so that no one would know what he is doing, and he wanted to do it even before God stops him from doing something that he wants to do. Okay, so that's how Isaac was behaving in this time. We see Esau's behavior is also to be blamed over here. He surely knew the words spoken by God that the older one was to serve the younger one, but it was not easy to accept that he has to serve the younger one. So he even forfeited the birthright. He already has sold his birthright to Jacob. But he wanted to get it back. He thought, this is a way that I can get back my birthright, which I have already sold to Jacob. So he did not care for the spiritual part of the blessings. He was only interested in the materialistic blessings. Okay, so the last part that we see over here is the counterplot and the blessings. So when Rebecca overhears the talks between Esau and Isaac, she decides to act with shrewdity. Okay, so she thought that it is right to interfere in the plan of God to protect the rights of Jacob. So here, as Sarah did at that time, we see that Rebecca feels it is right to protect the plan of God. So she thought that God is unable to protect his plan, so I should act in such a way that I should be handing over the covenantal blessings to Jacob, the birthright to Jacob, and I should interfere. I should jump in. I should protect protect God's plan from being destroyed. That's what Rebecca was thinking over here. But she should understand that God is more powerful, and God knows how to handle his own situations. She was fearlessly and was willingly to to brave the wrath of her husband. Okay, she knew that if she does this, she's going to have to bear the brunt of her husband's anger. But she was fearless, and she was very brave, and she did it. And she did not bother how her husband would react, but she wanted to achieve this for God and her son. Okay, initially, Jacob hesitates. He did not want to do what his mother was asking him to do. Uh, but not of doing wrong, but of being. He was not scared of. He did. It's not like that. He did not want to do this wrong that his mother is doing. I don't want to participate in the wrong that my mother is doing. But he was scared that what if he gets caught in the act? What if Esau knows? What if Esau sees me? What if Isaac gets to know that I am Jacob and I'm not Esau? So what will happen? So he was fearful of that, being caught in the act. Okay, so encouraged by his mother, pressurized by his mother, he disguised himself like Esau. He took on the goat meat, cooked well the while, just like Esau cooks, and he takes it to Isaac. He even takes the name of the Lord in vain in the whole process, attributing his success to God. Okay, so they even take the name of the Lord and take the name of the Lord in vain to make their act success. So he culminates his hypocrisy with a Judas's kiss. So in the end, we see a similarity how Judas kisses Jesus and submits him in the hand of in the hand of the soldiers. In the same way, we see here Jacob also kisses his dad and leaves. Okay, so it's all culminated in that such a way. Okay, so Isaac lets his senses of taste. He tastes the food, he smells, and his clothes smells the clothes of Esau. He touches the hand and neck of Jacob and sees so much hair is there, feels it. But the voice was of Jacob. He could not. He was there was a confusion in the voice, but he thought, no, yeah, it's smelling like my son. It tastes like the food of my son. It touches that sense, the sense of touch. It is. It's like Esau's skin. So I think my ears have gone bad now. So probably this is Esau. So he trusted that. So after a long scrutiny, he was convinced that Jacob was Esau, and he blesses him. So the blessing begins with productivity of the soil. The blessings Isaac intended for Esau, uh, but gave it to Jacob. So we see that Isaac thought that he is blessing Esau, but he is actually blessing Jacob. So he promises, he talks, this is the covenantal blessings that he is giving him now, the possession of the land, agricultural prosperity, there's a nationhood is involved, dominion over the nation, then the rule of over his brother, okay, and God's protective curse or blessing on others according to how they treat them. So even Abraham was blessed like that, that whoever curses Abraham will be cursed and whoever blesses Abraham will be blessed. So the same kind of blessing and curse was given upon Jacob also. So we find one blessing missing over here. That was a blessing of all the people will be blessed through him. Okay, so it was probably omitted by Isaac because he knew that Esau was not a person who is going to bless others. He's more interested in the materialistic values than the spiritual values. So probably Isaac omitted that blessing upon while blessing Jacob because he was thinking it is Esau. Isaac reacts, and Isaac, when he comes to know that he has been deceived by Rebecca and Jacob, he reacts and he is very angry at that time because he has been deceived. But he also recognizes that God has overruled his wicked plan. Okay, he also realized that I was planning against God. This plan was wicked, and I was planning against God, and God has overruled my plan. Okay, so no attempt to curse Jacob or complaint about him can work now because it was God who has overruled him. Esau is deeply hurt because Jacob, by deception, received the birthright blessing that he himself had already sold to Jacob. Helpless, he seeks blessings with tears from Isaac. So he did not know what to do. Esau is so sad now because the blessings have already gone. So all his hard work and everything is gone in vain. Now he's so helpless. He goes to his father and seeks, give me some blessing. Something will be remaining. No, give me some kind of blessings. Okay, so we see that this is the kind of blessing that he asks, and that is what he receives. So the blessings that Esau actually receives sounds more like curse than like blessings. Okay, so if you read his blessings, it would be good that if you read the blessings of Esau, it sounds more like curse than like blessing. So we see this is what is happening with Esau. The fulfillment of the blessing began when Esau moved to Edom. So we understand that the process of blessings begin when they actually moved out from that place. Okay, so his descendants inhabited in the arid, unfruitful mountain of Seir, where they lived by war and plunder. So they had to fight and they had to do war to establish themselves in the mountain of Seir. But they were very strong people and they did fight well and they were able to conquer that place. So Edom was dominated by Israel at times, but especially at the time of King David onwards. Okay, so before that, Edom was independent of Israel, but when Israelites moved there and King David's empire began, that was a time when, especially when they dominated Edom also. So Edomites revolted and enjoyed a period of freedom also, as it was promised in the blessings by Isaac. So finally, they were completely conquered in 129 BC by John Hyrcanus, who forced them to accept circumcision and incorporate them into the Jewish state. So we see that they were dissolved gradually into the Jewish state. So Rebecca's counter plot defeated Isaac's plot. Okay, so we saw here that the counter plot that was designed by Rebecca, it defeated Isaac's plot, but it brought blessings in the proper line that was the will of God. But was the way right? The way it was done, was it right? Did Rebecca do right? No act can be justified over here. Okay, as both tried to take God's job in their hands and tried to show him how to keep his promise. Okay, so they were actually telling God, God, you're not doing a good job. You are not able to keep your promise. So let me do it for you. That's what Rebecca and Isaac both were doing over here. So the birthright of Jacob and God would have anyhow given the birthright to Jacob. Okay, he knew how to do it. God would have anyhow given the birthright to Jacob, but Rebecca intervened. Rebecca's scheme widened the division between the family. Okay, so Esau and Jacob became quite a lot of enemies and hatred developed between them and their men. Okay, Esau vowed to avenge himself and kill his brother. So he became so angry with Jacob because of Rebecca that he even vowed to himself to kill his brother. Okay, so Jacob had to flee from his place and he left behind all the comforts and his possessions of the father, and he had to run away from that place to save his life. So this was the reaction, or this was the result of the plan and of the plot and the counter plot of the parents. He and his mother would never see each other again. So the son that she loved so much, she would never see that son again. Okay, that's what happened after this. He would spend 20 years in hard labor in exile. Okay, he would go to another place in Haran, and there he would spend 20 long years serving a man who was harsh, a kind of exile that he would be living in. So the very weapon he had used, deceit, okay, deceit was a very weapon that he had used, would be used against him by others. So now the deceiver will be deceived. Okay, soon we are going to see how the deceiver is going to be deceived. So Jacob reaped a bitter and prolonged harvest after this. So we see that whatever he had sowed, he is going to reap that. Okay, so this is all for this chapter. I will be soon recording the next chapter and sending it to you. Okay, so bye bye. God bless you.